the Saturday morning to all of you watching The Sweat right now, whether it's on DraftKings Network or VSiN, listening on radios around the world. We appreciate the hell out of you for being here. I am Emerson Latzia. Josh Applebaum, a little wrinkled over here,
That's
big
all right.
man.
Should iron.
Wow. Steve Buchanan, love the zipper. Hey, hoodie. Julian Edlow.
You wear a hood on the show all the time.
I do. I'm complimenting all of you in the way you look tonight.
the way
and that I was motivated.
Well, you look the best of all, my friend.
That is very true. Tom Brady was rocking the cardigan yesterday out of
That's why
Pebble
you did
Beach.
that.
And I was like, okay, Tom Brady and I are the same. And then you see him top a drive.
I was going to say, topping golf balls just like me.
That's right. We do not have golf on the menu today, but there are tons and tons of Super Bowl goodness. Check it out. Here's the menu. Props on props on props. We will get after all of them ahead of Super Bowl Swifty 8.
I haven't heard that one yet. It's so dumb that I like
hot. That is so hot. Top 10 college matchups? Yeah, there's 4 of them. It's a big, beefy slate. Jules was saying before the show, this is the best college basketball card yet this season, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you guys got some great bets, right? We're going to rip through all 147 games.
Hopefully they're great.
Side and total. Bet on them all.
And then, cover to cover, everybody. We're going to read the entire DK Sportsbook, so see what these guys are feeling. And speaking of that, let's work up a sweat right now. All right, gentlemen? So I'm going to need your little warm-up bet here, or just some odds you're keeping an eye on, a storyline out there in the betting world. Jules, I want you to lead off for us here.
All right, you stole my thunder a little bit, Emerson. But yes, what I'm working up a sweat about is that people think this isn't a good sports weekend. No football week leading up to the Super Bowl. This is a awesome college basketball Saturday. Not to mention a couple of good games on Sunday, highlighted by Purdue and Wisconsin. But this one, we're going to have Houston at Kansas, which we'll talk about all these ranked games later. Duke, UNC, Tennessee at Kentucky. I'll give you one note that has nothing to do with who's going to win this Houston-Kansas game. The last time Kansas was a home underdog was 3 years ago. They were a home underdog to that undefeated Baylor team that went on to win the national championship. But Kansas won that game at home by double digits, 71-58, as 4.5-point home dogs. The time before that they were home underdogs, Kansas at the Phog, the 2004-2005 season. We're talking 20 years ago.
Ooh.
We don't get Kansas home underdog spots, and we will talk about this game much later in the show. But one of the reasons I like this card so much, so many underrated games, so I'll give one of them out right now, a 5 o'clock Eastern tip in the Pac-12. Colorado plays at Utah. Colorado's coming off a road loss. Both of these teams just did the Washington State road trip playing those 2 games. Colorado split, and Utah lost both. But that was Colorado's only road win of the year. They're 1-5 straight up and against the spread on the road, whereas Utah is 11-0 at home. Coming back home after consecutive losses, they're 7-4 against the spread at home. Both teams have had a full week off to prep for this game after their road trip. Colorado's lost 9 of the last 11 trips to Salt Lake City to play Utah. And if you want to go back, I mentioned they're 1-5 straight up on the road this season. If you want to go back, Colorado is 2-10 in their last 12 road games overall, dating back to last season. I love laying 2.5 points with Utah today in this home game after a couple losses and a full week off.
Josh, does this weekend feel like March or what, baby?
Feels great. We got to get to conference tournaments, though, first, then March Madness.
Yeah.
So let's pace ourselves a little bit here. But I'm going to go right to what Julian was talking about, right to the biggest game of the day, Houston and Kansas. We have so many great matchups, but to me, this is the one that takes the cake. It's the most heavily bet game of the day. It also is kind of one of the fishiest, sharpest moves of the day. And I like taking the points here with Kansas at home. This game opened Houston minus 2.5 on the road. And just take a step back here. You know, Houston is 19-2, fourth in the country. They've won 5 straight. Kansas 17-4, but they're struggling a bit as of late. They're just 2-2 in their last 4. Yet, this opens 2.5, and it feels so low, like you got to take Houston, right? Like, how can you ever get Houston laying such a short number? But I think if you kind of fall into the trap of it looks too good to be true, typically it is. So I like the fact that this line is moving toward Kansas. Kansas plus 2.5, now down to plus 1.5. The bet splits are great. It's right down the middle. Public really doesn't know what to do. They love the fact that they can get the Cougars at a short number, but also they do respect Kansas at home getting points. 50-50 bet split, but Emerson, 85% of the money is going with Kansas here, and that jives with the move toward Kansas. Conference dog, something I like to look at. There's an epic game yesterday between Butler and Creighton where that conference dog angle, Butler wins outright, but typically these conference games, rivalry games, familiarity, it's kind of like NFL divisional dogs where I lean on dogs in these spots. And really, we know Houston has great defense, but Kansas, their offense is better here. 79 points a game versus 74. They have a better effective field goal percentage, three-point shooting, free throw percentage, 74% versus 68%. Also, that home court advantage. 12-0 at home this year. Allen Fieldhouse will be rocking.
Yeah.
Houston only has 2 losses this year, Emerson. They're both on the road. They're at TCU. They're at Iowa State. And Julian was mentioning this, but the only 2 times Self has been a dog, they won both games outright. So if you give me the most heavily bet game of the day, and we have a sharp line move away from the obvious side toward the unpopular side with a great bet split, I got to make that bet 10 times out of 10. Give me Jayhawks plus 1.5.
Yeah,
It was hard for me to look back this far because it's hard to get trends into the 80s. But I'm pretty sure today is the 4th time in my lifetime that Kansas is a home underdog in basketball.
I think so. Bill Self has coached 278 games to be exact at Allen Fieldhouse. His team has closed as an underdog exactly twice in that entire period, against Baylor back in 2021 and then Ohio State in December of 2011. How about this, Jules? Both cases, Kansas not only covered, they won outright and won both those games by double digits. It almost feels like Kansas as a home dog is an absolute must bet. But it doesn't happen a whole lot.
That Ohio State game must have closed right around a pick because in my research that didn't even show up. So let's count that one, obviously, if it's there. So
great. And we've got a whole entire block coming up in this show dedicated to this incredible college basketball slate. Steve Buchanan, you're warming up to what right now on this Saturday morning?
You know, it's Super Bowl time.
Yes, it is, big man.
But that also means we're on the cusp of Major League Baseball.
Oh, look at this. You are
you going to Truck Day at Fenway Park?
What's that?
Truck Day? You ready
When
for
is that?
Oh, I could care less.
They're riding against
God.
Sean Henry, but hey, either way.
Yeah,
But you
it's
know
like,
what,
it's like a
Josh?
little flatbed truck.
You know what, Josh? I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to be talking about that team specifically.
Ooh.
There is still time, ladies
wow.
and gentlemen,
He's making eye contact.
for you to take the under on this pathetic, ridiculous franchise
Yes.
that is based here in Boston. The under on their win total is set at 80.5.
it still hasn't moved yet, huh?
The book is thinking that this is going to be potentially a 500 baseball club.
They just
Now
brought
you
back
bring that
Theo.
up though, but the
the-
under is now minus 115.
Did it open 110?
It opened at 110. This is going to move at one point or another. So I am imploring you to take this now. In a division that every team has been beefing up their roster, this roster, Boston Red Sox, have done next to nothing at this point. Their big acquisition was Lucas Giolito, who couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark in Chicago. Now he's going to come to Boston and try to do that there. Their rotation, Giolito, Nick Pivetta, Bayo, Crawford, and Tanner Houck. That is the rotation they're going to be rolling out on opening day. The heart of that lineup is Tristan Casas, Trevor Story, and Yoshida at this point. This team is going nowhere. Orioles just beefed up their rotation. They just traded for Corbin Burns a couple days ago. I don't see how this team is going to be even close to a 500 ball club at any point this season. Give me under 80.5 wins. I cannot believe that this is at 80.5 at this point. This team is going to be in the basement of this division without a doubt. There's every single team is so much better than this club. And you're telling me they're going to be above 500 in last place in this division? No shot.
Do you think the Rays regress much?
I mean,
I feel like they regress, but they were really good. So
even if they regress,
Sox
I still
point,
think that they're an 88-89 win team.
Right.
So-
Their win total's like
strong stamp of
84.
approval from me on the Red Sox under.
I always feel like the books know better. I think they're just way off here. I don't see this at all at 80.5 wins.
Sometimes you put stuff like this up early. Nobody's paying attention. It's Super Bowl time.
Right.
Midst of basketball season. And it gets adjusted. Somebody finds it. Yeah. Somebody smart finds it.
Yep.
A lot of money hits it. And then, hey, the Super Bowl's over. It's been a week. We're starting to look at March Madness. We're starting to look at spring training. And then, oh, wait, it's 78.5.
Right.
And then oh, do I want to bet it? It's down 2, and then it closes like 76.5, and you're
Right.
like, I should have bet it. So these are things you want to look at early when people aren't necessarily paying attention.
And I think the Red Sox division rival, the Yankees, have the highest preseason win total, right around 93.
Now, I also think that they're overpriced. Like, they really haven't done much either. Like, they did bring in Juan Soto, which obviously is a massive move, but the rest of that lineup is still aging, injury prone. Like, I think the average age of the starting lineup was like 34 point something, like fairly high. So Juan Soto is great, but like that team is still full of strikeouts, full of guys that can't get on base, full of low average batting guys. Like, I think the Yankees are a little bit overpriced too as well. I still think if you want to take somebody to win the division, Orioles still at plus 230 is crazy to me because that team, saw how good they were last year. Just brought in Corbin Burns, like I mentioned. Like, I think there's some good value there on the Orioles, but man, taking the Red Sox to be a 500 ball club with that roster, it feels absurd.
Steve, let me just ask you one thing. The Red Sox are so reactionary. They get hammered by PR. They're very sensitive. They may spend some money just to win back some fans. They bring in Theo. They did Trevor
That's
Story
over.
last
But
year.
that's over.
That's
No,
over.
but what if they pay for a guy like Montgomery, Snell? Does that change your over-under 80.5 win total?
The offense is going to be putrid. That's going to be my biggest thing. Like, there is so many teams that are going to go because so even if you have 2 good guys in that rotation, the whole second half of that rotation is abysmal. They have nobody in that bullpen. So like even if they are getting 5-6 good innings every 2 days, it's not going to. They're not going to spend the money.
I don't
that's,
think they're going
that's
to
the
spend
thing.
Well,
that's
That's
a
the
matter of
biggest
time.
Gentlemen, I've got not 1 but 2 warm-up bets that will
27
essentially
seconds
be a cool-down bet that I'm going to save
Thank
for
you,
the end
Drew.
of this show because I'm going
Wow.
Oh, my
to the
God.
4 Swifties tab on the DK Sports
You are
book.
That's your
insufferable.
kind of tab.
That's right, big man. But speaking of the 12-time Grammy winner's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, he's come alive this postseason. How tasty are his odds on the DK Sportsbook? We're ripping through the props department on the Chiefs side after this quick break. All right, people, you're like, man, I could really use some advice, some help placing bets ahead of Super Bowl 58.
Yeah.
We got you covered. Check this out.
Look at this.
Right now, the VSiN Big Game Betting Primer.
Ooh.
So you can download this betting guide for the Super Bowl. Guess what? You know how much it costs? It's
much?
absolutely freaking free, man.
Why wouldn't you download it?
Exactly. And it features the expert handicappers and analysts from VSiN. Are you in this thing?
I will be starting tomorrow when I land in Vegas and get to write and contribute.
Oh, look at you, Big Daddy. So go to vsin.com/DKN. Go download it. It's free. I know you've got room on your phone and your computer. You need help, and we are here to help you. And so
What a
right
pitch.
now,
Oh, yeah, wow.
yeah, that's right, guys. I'm pretty fired up. Super Bowl prop bets. So here we go. Before you download that, or download it as you're watching and listening to us, player props, all that fun novelty stuff. Some of the most popular wagers you can make on the big game, everybody. So right now, for the next 10 minutes, we're going to stick to which player props these guys like for the Chiefs. Let's start under center for the fourth time in 5
one.
years. I love you, little zipper. Patrick Mahomes is back in the Super Bowl. Where would you target him on the DK Sportsbook, Stephen? Don't look at me like that.
So they have a, I love taking these two, passing and rushing yards combined. You can take those. I like taking the over of 289.5 for Mahomes in this one. There's been one glaring issue for the 49ers run defense over the past, in these playoff games.
Yep.
They've been getting absolutely dismantled on the ground. They've allowed 318 rushing yards in 2 games. So obviously an average of 159 per game here. We've seen Mahomes take 14 rush attempts in the 3 playoff games that they've played so far. He's had 15, 19, and 41 in those games. And then obviously the idea that, maybe potentially that the Chiefs are playing from behind in this situation because, this spread's been kind of moving around a lot here, but Chiefs currently 2-point underdogs. We'll probably see a lot of movement before kickoff here next Sunday. But I just like this perspective here because Mahomes has been running with the ball. He's been finding some success with Kelsey, with Rice, really nobody else here. MVS obviously came on a little bit here, but it's really kind of been condensed to those 3 guys. Like Mecole Hardman was not even existent in that last game there, so that's good. We don't have to worry about some extra drops from some of the other receivers, but I like that number there, 289.5 passing and rushing yards from Mahomes.
All right, Josh, while there's no denying that the Chiefs' skill players here aren't at the level they've been at years prior, it does kind of feel like Mahomes, similar to Kelsey, has kind of hit this next level this postseason.
Yeah, he really has. So I think Steve hit the nail on the head. You can either do that combined, passing and rushing, or you can break them up individually, maybe pick one that you like more. So in terms of his passing yards, over 259.5, really juiced up -125. Now, ironically, he's only gone over this number once this postseason. He had 262 against Miami, 215 against Buffalo, 241 against Baltimore. But you got to remember that Buffalo game, that Baltimore game, it was freezing cold. There was weather. There were issues. We're at Allegiant Stadium. We're in Vegas. This is a controlled environment. It's going to be perfect conditions. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes, is in the same division as the Raiders, so he's used to the stadium. There's the familiarity there as well. Goff just threw for 273 last week against San Francisco. And if you also go look back to the box score of the Super Bowl, right before COVID hit, remember back in 2020, Mahomes threw for 286 against Kansas City. You have both similar schemes. Both head coaches are the same. So I like that over. I think also in terms of the rushing prop, hammer down that a little bit more. Over 25.5 rushing yards. It's juiced up over -125. He had, in particular, not just box scores, but you got to think about it. Quarterbacks, there's nothing left to worry about. We remember John Elway getting the tornado when he went for a touchdown and got hit. You're not going to slide every time here like the regular season. I think you're going to go for it. You're going to risk getting hit. You're going to fight when you're running for that extra yard or two. So I think that's just a benefit to both of these quarterbacks. But he rushes more in big games. It's 25.5 juiced up over. He had 6 for 44 against the Eagles in last year's Super Bowl. Also, his over 4.5 rushes, in particular attempts, is over 4.5 at -125. So I like both of those. Again, you could go Steve's way and combine them. But I'd also say, guys, when it comes to these prop bets, I think if you like the overs, you probably want to get it now because if you wait too long, they rise a ton. And then what a lot of pros like to do is, bookmark the odds now, screenshot them, write them down, give it a week, and then when we get to next week, Saturday and Sunday, look at the ones that move the most and then go the other way and really buy low on those. So again, it's all about timing, not just the prop you like.
Jules, what about under half an interception for Patrick Mahomes? Because his last postseason INT came more than 2 years ago. And the 49ers did not pick off a pass either against the Lions.
Yeah, I think when we start talking passing props and Mahomes, you want to look passing yards, over. And I think, I would lean over in this game, but I think there's a lot of other better ways to attack the Mahomes market. Not to throw an interception is one of them. He's been under complete control, not just in these playoffs, but in general in these postseason games. Mahomes has been terrific. So I think he's going to limit his mistakes in this game, so I do like that. And I am drawn to the rushing yards. Difference is, I'm not going to mess around with the 25.5 yards because there can be kneels late in the game. What I like for Mahomes is his yards on his longest rush. Over 12.5, minus 105. He seems to break one of these every game, particularly in the postseason. One of these opens up for him. We've seen him scamper for decent chunks of yardage at least once in all of these playoff games so far. And I will take you back to a famous one. This is when legalized sports betting was just getting going in some states. It was the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Mahomes was way over his rushing prop in the fourth quarter. Do you guys remember how he took these late knees? He was literally running backwards so that nobody tackled him and kneeling.
Just a bad beat.
He was over his rushing prop by about 15 yards in that game, and the under cash because he was running backwards for these kneels. I bet the long carry in that game. I think it was 12.5 in that game too. He had one for over that in the game, cashed the ticket. I think this is the way to attack it.
All right. How about in the backfield? How about in the rushing department here, Bukes? I know Pacheco has become this invaluable part of the Chiefs' attack. And I think one of you guys mentioned already, the 49ers defense, this really allows backs to bust loose outside.
Oh, and more recently is what I talked about earlier there too. So there's one thing that you can do to obviously a little same game parlay here is take two things that I really like here. Is taking the over on his rushing yards, which is at 67.5, and parlay that with an anytime touchdown. You're getting that at plus 196 here. I mean, they run him in the red zone a lot, really, since he's come on in the second half of the season here. But what's most impressive to me is what we saw last week. With no Tooney in the lineup, he was dealing with 2 injuries last week. He had a toe and an ankle injury. He went for 24 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown, and then 14 yards through the air on 4 catches as well. He's seen at least 15 carries now in all 3 playoff games. He's averaging 21 per game in the playoffs. And I mentioned earlier, the 49ers are really getting gashed on the ground. Already 5 rushing touchdowns allowed in the playoffs. And remember, they already had a bye week. 5 rushing touchdowns in 2 games for the 49ers run defense at this point. Give me the over on those two Pacheco there. You get those in the same game parlay, plus 196. I like that play.
Who on the Chiefs can deliver in the rushing props department?
I'm kind of with Steve with Pacheco, over 67.5 rushing yards. It's minus 125. Ironically, this thing has fallen, though. This was actually 69.5, down to 67.5. So, again, I think if you're targeting these props, wait it out, see which direction it's going. Feel like you can get the bottom low number if you want to go over. But to Steve's point, he had 68 yards against Baltimore. He had 97 against Buffalo, 89 against Miami. The carries in particular, over 16.5. It's really juiced up, minus 125. I like him to get 17 or more. Again, he's had 24 twice. He had 15 another time. And San Fran, they gave up 108 yards to Aaron Jones, 93 to Montgomery, 45 to Gibbs. I think Pacheco, whether it's his attempts, his rushes, or his overall yards, I think it's a good game and a good spot to back in both.
What about for a wide receiver or a tight end here, Jules? We all know it's either Rice or Kelsey. Those are the 2 most trusted targets of Patrick Mahomes here.
Yeah, this is going to be a popular one. So like we said, these overs are going to go up leading up to the game. So
now's
bet
the
it.
time to
it's
attack.
already gone up from 69.5 to 70.5. I like Travis Kelce's receiving over. This is going to be popular for a ton of reasons. It's an over. It's a good player. It's a Taylor Swift related over. But
this 87 yards.
The dude, knock it off.
I'm just saying that's part of for the Swifties. The tab.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the
87 yards.
Swifties tab. Just regular receiving yards.
Okay,
Props
sorry.
like a normal sports bettor.
So stupid.
Travis Kelce, say what you want about him in the regular season. He's clearly come alive in the postseason. Him and Mahomes have about as good of a connection as you can have. the Ravens game specifically highlighted just how good pitch and catch, backyard, get open when they need it. 11 targets, 11 receptions, 116 yards. Travis Kelce has gone over 70.5 receiving yards in 12 straight playoff games. Got to have it situations. We know where Mahomes is looking. Rice is a great player. I think he'll develop well with Mahomes. But we know who the guy is in the game, and it's Mahomes to Kelce. So this 49ers pass defense, no, I'm not on Mahomes passing over, but he's gone. They've been getting shredded in the postseason. They've been all over the place. So I love this Kelce over.
Just a long shot that I like here for a wide receiver prop. You can bet on the player to have the longest reception in the game. Justin Watson is at 15-1 in this game.
Sneaky.
Yeah, I think so. This is somebody who, is going to get maybe 2, maybe even 3 targets in the game, but they're deep shots when they do target him. Average distance to target, highest amongst any player who was taking the field in this game at 18.2. Worth a little shot.
All right, well, Deebo Samuel, hell of a receiver for the other team in this game. 49ers are hoping he can step up, help San Fran reach that ultimate goal. San Francisco prop bets are on the menu next. I'm old enough to remember when Brock Purdy was the MVP frontrunner until he threw 4 interceptions against the Ravens back in Week 16. So, pretty cool story here. We all know Mr. Irrelevant now, very irrelevant, and his Super Bowl odds are
very relevant.
Yeah, they are, and they're expected to be almost like a highly debated option in the player props market here, Bukes, because he is supported, while he is, by a strong cast, this arsenal of weapons.
Yep.
We're still talking about a relatively inexperienced quarterback facing one of the league's top defensive units. So it almost adds this element of uncertainty to it. And we've seen him a little hot and cold this postseason as well. So right now, when we're talking passing props, quarterback props here for the San Francisco side, what stands out to you?
Well, I think there's been 2 versions of Brock Purdy that we've seen. Brock Purdy playing with a lead and Brock Purdy playing from behind.
Okay.
And they are 2 vastly different
For sure.
players. And I think that's kind of been the thing here. So I think when you're making these props or you're making these bets, you also should have kind of in mind where you think the 49ers are playing this game. Do you like them to win? Do you like them to lose? Because I think that also really comes into play because, at least for me, and I don't know if you guys agree, I don't think there's been someone who's had such egregious looks when he's trying to throw, when he's playing from behind or when he's playing with a lead. That being said, there are 2 props that really kind of jumped out to me. One of them is his under on his rushing yards of 12.5. I feel like people are going to automatically hit the over on this because of what we've seen in the 2 games in the playoffs. He's had 11 rushes for 62 yards. So you look at a number like 12.5, you're like, oh, this is going to be an easy over. That is not something that Brock Purdy does on a normal basis. He's only had double-digit rushing yards 4 times during the regular season. Early in the season, he had 2 games in weeks 7 and 8 when he ran for a combined 11 times for 76 yards. After that, going all the way up to the playoffs, 0, 14, 1, 9, 7, 0, 2, 4. That's not my social security number. That's the number of the rushing yards for Brock Purdy in the games subsequently after those 2 big rushing games. They've come in these little pockets and these little bunches. So altogether, in 4 games when he's had those big rushing yards, those have accounted for 67% of his total rushing yards on the entire season. Going up against a team with an average to below average pass rush, I just don't see Purdy having to run the ball a lot. Also, real quick, to throw an interception, again, if he's playing from behind, that really comes into play here. It's at minus 105 for the over in this one here. The majority of his interceptions have come in losses. 9 of his 12 interceptions have come in games that the 49ers have lost. So give me those 2 bets for Brock Purdy.
Jules, we've watched Brock Purdy kind of teeter-totter his way through a couple narrow playoff wins. And then on the other side, this Chiefs defense has limited 3 high-powered offense. So would you almost want to target right now maybe some Brock Purdy unders?
Yeah, I don't mind Steve's look on the rushing under. I'm going to pass on Purdy props. If anything, I would probably bet him to throw an interception.
Okay.
I love the way the Chiefs defense is playing, what they've been doing to these opposing quarterbacks, particularly the passing game of the Ravens and Lamar Jackson last week is scary stuff. So I don't want to back Brock Purdy to have a good game. The problem is, I'll spoil it a little bit, I do like Kansas City in the game. So if you're going to be playing from behind, some of that passing is going to be required. So that's why I'm going to pass on Purdy props altogether. I would do the interception if I did anything. And honestly, if you do like the 49ers, Purdy's better than 2-1 to win Super Bowl MVP. It could absolutely be Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey for sure, but that's like an unheard of price for a quarterback on the favorite to win MVP. So that's not a bad thing to play if you do like San Francisco.
Yeah, Brock Purdy over half an interception, minus 115 on the DK Sportsbook. Are you targeting Purdy at all?
So a little bit, when you were talking about, unders for Brock Purdy, I immediately go to the sportsbook and say, hey, what are the most juiced up unders for Purdy? And a couple jumped out to me. In terms of pass attempts, Purdy is 31.5. Under minus 125. So there's some liability there, especially if we think this is going to be a bit of a lower scoring game. We'll talk about the total later. It's 47.5. There's a lot of trends in the Super Bowl with a high total to go under. You also get the Chiefs. They don't have that high-powered offense like we're used to seeing. They run the ball more. They chew up the clock. San Fran likes to run the ball. If you're starting to piece these things together, maybe we get a lower scoring game. Maybe we get more rushing attempts. Therefore, you would have less passing theoretically. So that Purdy under 31.5 minus 125 jumps out to me. And then also you look at the longest completion for Brock Purdy, 37.5 yards. The under is minus 125. So with this really good defense here for Kansas City, they have a couple great corners here with Snead and with McDuffie. Can they limit some of these big plays to, for Debo and obviously Kittle under 37.5? I would lean to that under, as well as the under 31.5 pass attempts.
Okay, what do you want to do in terms of running back props? We know what an absolute beast Christian McCaffrey can be. Steve, he has 4 touchdowns in the playoffs. That gives him 25 in 18 games this season.
Yeah, I mean, his numbers are just like so absurd too. Like his rushing and receiving prop, I think, is at 125 and a half. The Chiefs have been an average run defense here. Like if I'm targeting a running back, like I want to be taking the Pacheco ones here. Like I just think that McCaffrey's numbers are getting a little out of hand. Like you can't even bet him to get an anytime touchdown score because it's like such an absurd price at minus 225. I know Julian said last week that he wanted to do 2 touchdowns for McCaffrey, I think it was, and that was at like plus
130 or something.
Yeah, it was something like crazy. You did cash it, but I mean,
I'm not playing with fire like that again.
Yeah, but I mean, 2 touchdowns for McCaffrey in this game is at plus 225 because obviously the run defense is a little bit better here. But
yeah.
I just think that for me, if I'm taking anything with McCaffrey, I'm probably going to take those combined to get the rushing and receiving because he doesn't get scripted out of these games. If they're playing from behind, they're going to throw to him. If they're playing with the lead, they're going to run the ball with him. But also with the full complement of weapons too, it does give me some pause because what if you get something from Deebo Samuel? What if you get something from George Kittle or Brandon Ayuk? There's just so many ways that the 49ers can go. So with McCaffrey's numbers getting as high as they are, I'm probably passing on his numbers. But again, I can't blame you for somebody who's been essentially automatic, especially for a touchdown all season long.
And while, Jules, some people may be like, well, the Chiefs just held the Ravens to 81 rushing yards last week.
They didn't want to run.
Baltimore was forced to pass really in the second half after
they gave it to the running backs
early.
5 times.
Yeah,
a lot of that was
for real.
check.
And that was the recipe for success like all season long.
Yeah, pretty weird. You look at it in general, Kansas City's the 17th ranked, has the 17th ranked run defense, just over 113 yards per game. So, by all means, they're NFL average. A run defense like the 49ers, I would lean over 89.5 rushing yards with McCaffrey. Purdy has shown not to be very trustworthy the last couple of weeks, despite good flashes and great plays that sparked comebacks. He hasn't been all that trustworthy. So what do I do, especially the way the Chiefs secondary is playing, what do I do against Kansas City? I use the best running back in the league with an O-line that can run the ball against a league average run defense. So I do lean over on McCaffrey, but I agree with the guys in the sense that I think the Pacheco over is a better bet against the San Francisco defense that suddenly, like, when I'm watching these playoff games, I don't know what I'm watching with this San Francisco defense that's been so elite. They gave up 182 rushing yards to the Lions last week. They're giving up an average of 142 rushing yards over the past 3 games. Hasn't been good in the postseason. So I think Pacheco's the better bet, but yes, for McCaffrey, and McCaffrey's going to be a popular guy to bet, I would lean over in the rushing yards department.
So I know the Chiefs' defense has allowed the 3rd fewest average receiving yards to opposing tight ends, but that doesn't have you staying away from George Kittle.
So it worries me, Emerson, for sure in terms of the matchup, but I think it's a buy low spot on George Kittle. I mean, I took the Kittle over last week, didn't come through, got a loss on that one. But if you look at his current number, Kittle over 46.5 receiving yards. It's minus 120 to the over.
That's low.
It feels really low, Steve. So to me, it's not a matchup, but it's a value play based on kind of a buy low after kind of a quiet game. Remember, he only had 2 for 27 against Detroit last week, but against Green Bay the week before, he had 4 for 81. So I think you're buying low in this spot for Kittle. Feels like a low number. If this thing continues to drop, maybe you even want to wait it out. Maybe you'll get a better number if it continues to fall because the public will just say, hey, you only had 27 last game. It's 47, 46 now. Might as well go under. Wait, you might get a better number. But also, this was pointed out by Randy McKay, who is one of the wise guys in Vegas. He was mentioning how in the Super Bowl against Kansas City in 2020, Kittle only had 4 for 36. But if you remember, guys, there was a pass interference that got called on him, and it would have been like a 30 or 40-yard gain. So to me, Kittle, all the attention, deservedly so, will be on Kelsey. The Swift mania, Kelsey's a great player. I'm on the Kelsey overs. But to me, all the love for Kelsey, maybe Kittle's flying under the radar a little bit. That feels like a low number. I'll go over 46.5.
When I was thinking about props that I was going to target, like his under was actually one of the first ones that came to mind. Like, Chiefs been pretty good against tight ends. Like Kittle has been kind of non-existent, especially with Deebo coming back. And then I saw the number, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. Like I was expecting like mid-50s. Like usually in my head, like if I'm like looking at the game, like I kind of have an idea of like where I think the number is going to land. Like I was way off on this number by like almost like 11 yards by what I thought his over-under was going to be. So now I'm looking at 46 and a half, and I'm like, well, crap. Now I'm talking myself into it over now. But like that is just such an absurdly low number for a guy who during the regular season is like in the mid-50s, maybe even low 60s, depending on the matchup. Like I don't know for sure, but I feel like this might be the lowest prop for him for the season. I cannot confirm that, but just going through, I could not think of a time where he was in the mid-40s at any point this season.
Well, if you have more questions about props here, and we will be tackling this all week from Radio Row, especially with you two dudes in Vegas, do not forget the VSiN Big Game Betting Primer. Downloadable betting guide for the Super Bowl. It's absolutely freaking free. Features all the handicappers and analysts from VSiN. So vsin.com/DKN. It is free. Go download it right meow. And coming up after this break, little NBA shoot around here, and Anthony Edwards has been cooking. What these guys expect, what they're betting tonight on the NBA slate. Okay, following another fun Friday around the NBA, we look forward to a 6-game slate tonight, one that's highlighted by the Lakers, hopefully with LeBron and AD, versus the streaking Knicks. That is sure to please. So let's keep cranking away on best bets and top props. Before we dive into tonight, though, LeBron James has never been traded here, Jules. But less than 48 hours ago, he was involved in some of the loudest rumors of his 21-year NBA career. What is the latest on this? The Lakers haven't really said anything, but it's been more of LeBron's camp, who's been like, no, this isn't happening?
Yeah, so an LA reporter who has been right about things in the past got the Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers story correct essentially earlier than anyone else, said that there was a trade possibility with LeBron James and the Lakers, and that's why in a game we expected them to play, primetime game Thursday night in Boston, both Anthony Davis and LeBron James rested. Since then, Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, has come out and said the Lakers are not trading LeBron, and we have not asked the Lakers for a trade. So they're shooting that down. We'll know in the next 5 days because the trade deadline is coming up. I would guess LeBron doesn't get traded. I don't think this report is ultimately correct, but it is curious that they sat out, and now they're questionable again going into this game at MSG. If LeBron and Anthony Davis don't play Saturday night at MSG after missing Thursday night in Boston, then something weird is going on. I'm convinced of that.
Okay, so then right now, how do you approach betting this game tonight? Because this is supposed to be the highlight of this 6-game slate.
Yeah, I like the Knicks. They're laying 4.5 right now. If LeBron and or Anthony Davis are out, that number is really gonna skyrocket. But if they get ruled in, which I expect them to be, maybe we can lay 3.5, 4 here. It comes down a little off that news because Lakers bettors just want to make sure that those guys are in. Knicks are cruising. What is it, 8 or 9 wins in a row now? They've been powering through these games. Doesn't matter if Julius Randle is out there. Brunson's playing at an MVP caliber level. They won the other night without OG in the lineup. I would expect him back for this one. They've got something clicking. And, the Lakers are... Is this the type of game LeBron can get up for? Absolutely. So that's a little scary. But they are not clicking right now. The way that the Knicks are playing, I think, as bad as LeBron wants this one, you can't just flip the switch like that every time. So I would go Knicks in this one, and I don't mind if you want to wait just to be sure of what these lineups are going to look like.
And Josh, right now you have your eyes on that Golden State Warriors-Hawks game. Both these teams, this will be the second night of a back-to-back, both of them coming off wins last night, including the Hawks over the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, a couple ways to attack this one. Let's go from just the game point here. I'm going to go Atlanta Hawks, guys, on the money line. It's really not a bad price. If you look at the money line currently, it's like minus 135, minus 140. Sounds kind of crazy. Warriors, we think of them as a much better team than the Hawks, but this one goes out to my buddy Steve Buchanan. We have an NBA back-to-back system match when both teams are on the second leg of a back-to-back. Take the favorite. Very simple here. 78-62 against the spread, 56% ATS this year. What I also like is the fact that this line is moving toward Atlanta. Atlanta opened as low as a 2-point home favorite. Atlanta's now been bet up to -3. Why is that notable? Because the public's all over Golden State. 70% of bets are going Warriors, yet the line's going to Atlanta. It's a scheduling spot. Obviously, both teams are back-to-back. But if you look at Atlanta, they're on a 6-game homestand. They lost the first one, but they've won 3 straight. No travel involved, even though it's back-to-back. Golden State, second of a 5-game road trip, so it's kind of a tough spot for Golden State here. I like Atlanta to win this game, and I think you could also look toward Trae Young in this one. Trae Young, in terms of his points and assists, over 36.5. It's juiced up minus 125. He's gone over in 3 straight. His assist numbers are way up. You look at his last few games. I mean, he's double-digit assists pretty much every time. Golden State's one of the worst defensive efficiency teams in the NBA. You combine points with assists. Can Trae Young get combined 37 or more? I think that's doable. I like the Hawks to win the game, and I'll go over 36.5 points and assists for Trae Young.
Jules, you like a prop in this game. You're looking at a dude whose 29 points last night fueled the Warriors' win over the Grizzlies.
Yeah, the Warriors have switched up the rotation, and Jonathan Kuminga is a big part of things now. It took Steve Kerr a while, but you look at his last 8 games, he's scored 20 or more points in all of them. The prop tonight is up. It's up to 22.5 points. I would lean that way, but I would probably lay minus 130 on the points and rebounds combined. That is something, 28.5. He's gone over it in 8 consecutive games. And you mentioned the back-to-back. Will the Warriors rest some veterans, play them lighter minutes? who knows? This is a good spot for a younger player with not as many miles on his legs to go big minutes, even though he went 37 last night. And like Josh mentioned, he's also going against a Hawks team that doesn't play much defense, plays at a rapid pace, and they're on the second night of a back-to-back. So really good spot for Kuminga. I mentioned he's been really good the last 8 games. His minutes have specifically ticked up the last 3, 43, 39, 37. Those extra 6-7 minutes from what he was playing are a big deal, and he's been super productive with those. So I think this is a guy trending in the right direction in a really good spot, really good matchup. Also, I don't know if we have the award on the board right now. Most improved player. Tyrese Maxey scored 51 points against the Jazz in his first game back. He went from -200 to -700 to win most improved. Obviously, we're really favoring him to win it, but we know the rules this year. If he gets hurt, if he becomes way less efficient during this time that Embiid is out, there are some factors that could take Maxey out. I'm not laying -700 on anyone to win an award at this point in the year. Kuminga, last I saw, was 60-1. If he gives us 3 months of this type of player, that's worth a little sprinkle in my mind.
All right, Josh, what else is on your betting card from this 6-game slate tonight?
Yeah, let's go to Nets and 76ers here,
Okay.
Emerson. I think if you're going to root for some points and pick an over, this is my favorite over of the day. Nets 76ers total open at around 230, 231, around there. We've now seen it get bet up to 233, so this total is on the rise. It's always notable to me, Emerson, early in the morning. We do our show starting at 8 a.m.
Yes,
what's
we
the
do.
overnight move? What's the immediate move when the public's sleeping and they're going to wake up and, obviously it's the weekend, they got stuff to do, they'll bet these games later. What's the immediate move that the wise guys target as soon as the line opens? It screams to over here with Nets 76ers. The fact that this total has risen to now 2.5, almost 3 points since the opener. Philly is 6th in offensive efficiency. They really haven't missed a beat since Embiid got hurt. They put up 125, 130 against the Jazz the other night. Nets are 17th, so they're both kind of in that top echelon. But also, you look at both these teams rested. When I'm on an over, I want teams to have some rest. That way, they don't have tired legs. They have their kind of their energy. They can get up and down the court. You're swishing your shots, hopefully, instead of front rimming them. But Nets played Wednesday. Philly played Thursday. And also, it's kind of fishy because the last time these teams played, when Embiid was healthy, it was a 121-99 game. They only landed on 120 points. So Embiid's out, and yet this opens 230-ish, and it's rising. This screams like an overplay to me. And guys, did you know the number 1 over team in the NBA? It's the Philadelphia 76ers. They're 29-18 to the over.
Yeah. What has been the shakeup in the MVP market since that injury to Joel Embiid? Which I know we don't like to take a whole lot of victory
I was going to pump my own tires if you didn't.
I'm going to pump them for you. A couple weeks ago, this guy says Joel Embiid MVP is a terrible bet. He was running.
It's the worst bet you can make in the NBA.
Okay, so that would be a terrible bet. Then he goes out and scores 70 points, and I'm like, you're a nincompoop. And he says, no,
Also true.
It's still the worst bet you can make in the NBA. And then what happens a couple nights ago, screws up his meniscus. He's now plus 6,000 to win MVP in the NBA. Jokic, minus 140. The shake-up here.
He was plus 140 when we were having that conversation. See, it's a hidden jewel. I didn't even give out a winner. I just prevented you from betting a loser.
Thank you.
That money counts.
Okay. So
Another question. Jokic is like minus 130.
Yeah, it's minus
do you play
140
Jokic?
now. Minus 140.
Okay, so
what do you do in the
let me
MVP
see
market?
this. I don't know
Go
why
ahead,
the odds
big
aren't
man.
up on my laptop.
I'm always prepared.
So I think the rules this year, the change in rules creates a new market. I still need
Okay, you
that
still
we
need my
don't-
computer to take it.
The MVP isn't, the awards aren't coming up on my laptop. I got to change states or whatever. God, look what you did to me.
It's not me. You're not prepared.
Because it's a new market, or not a new market, but a new way to handle this market.
Okay.
There's a new rule. Jokic should not be minus 140 at this stage in time, as good as he is. You can give it to the best player every year. Tom Brady should win MVP every year. Michael Jordan should win MVP every year.
Well, they're
I don't know if
they're
we're gonna
not
go down
active
that
anymore
route.
in their respective
If
sports.
you're correct, I wouldn't bet either of them. If you're gonna go with somebody near the top, I would go with SGA. He's gonna get the games. He has the efficiency. If OKC holds on to a top seed in the West, then great. I think this is a great year for a dart throw. What about Kawhi Leonard 100-1?
Oh.
The Clippers are playing fantastic. They just dismantled the Celtics in Boston. What if Minnesota and OKC show their true colors a little bit, that they can't maintain this for an entire year? What if the Clippers get the 2 seed, let's call it, in the Western Conference, and Kawhi Leonard, who the rule isn't working in Embiid's favor, it is working in Kawhi's favor. He's playing games. If the Clippers climb the standings and play the way they're playing, and Kawhi keeps playing all these games, again, I'm not telling you he's going to win it. I'm giving you a 100-1 bet. I think that's good value.
Josh, you're locking eyes with me, which typically means you'd like to say something.
I got one last one to fit in before we go to break. Max Strus. Max Strus over
Why
14
shouldn't
and a
we have
half
time for Max Strus?
points and rebounds, because he's going to cash for us today, Julian. Over 14.5 points and rebounds, minus 120 to the over. Can he get you 15 combined points and rebounds? I think he can. He's gone over 4 of his last 5. Spurs are one of the worst teams defensive efficiency-wise. And did you know that Max Strus is the second, in terms of minutes played, the second most minutes played on his team? This is a guy they picked up in the offseason, become a key member of their team. Give me Strus over 14.5 points and rebounds.
All right, guys, it's time to kick off the second hour of our program. Is next Sunday a must-win game for the Chiefs? What about San Francisco? Kansas City shines as a dog. Our guys share their favorite game bets next. All right, if you haven't heard, the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas, baby. We're going to have boots on the ground. So this guy, Steve Buchanan, this guy, Josh Applebaum, going to be heading down there tomorrow, right? Are you guys on the same flight?
We don't need to discuss
I got to wake up super early and get out. I may not even sleep tonight. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
Wow.
You are. You do seem very excited.
I would recommend sleeping before you go to Vegas for 8 days.
Yeah, right? Because you're not going to be sleeping for the next 8 days, buddy, as you make bad decisions. You're going to be hanging out on Radio Row. You're going to be grabbing interviews. You're going to be touring Vegas. And lucky for us, what happens in Vegas this week is going to air next week here on this show, The Sweat, while Julian and I are putting this company on our back here in Boston. Live coverage next week on The Sweat, both you guys in the Sin City, but also for all of you watching, fans of Gojo and Golic, just a heads up, there's going to be a new time for that
what's
show.
up with that?
Yeah, what's up with that is they're giving them a break maybe, not making them get up and host a show from 5 to 7 a.m. local time.
Josh and I got to do that, yeah.
I know you do.
Interesting.
You're grinders. You know, we got to pamper the big dogs here, the father-son duo. That's going to be 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, just next week. So for 1 week only. And this postseason,
I think I'm clear on what's happening.
That is my job, is to make it clear for everyone watching, because they're like, they're going to tune in 8 to 10, and I think there's going to be reruns of that show airing at that time, or best of, but whatever. All right, so this postseason in the NFL, it's featured great plays, fantastic finishes, head-scratching coaching decisions, but it's all led to this. We got the Chiefs, we got the 49ers in Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. Chiefs are looking to become the first repeat Super Bowl champions here, guys, since
the Pats.
03-04 Pats. 49ers looking to avenge that 31-20 defeat to the Chiefs just 4 years ago in Super Bowl 54. Steve, you're going to love this question. What, if anything, can you take from that game and apply to this one?
Nothing.
There you go. I knew that was going to be the answer. Does anyone here on this
I
guest?
applied something earlier in the show. I applied that I'm betting Patrick Mahomes' long rush attempt rather than total rushing yards, because in that game he ran backwards for 1,000,000 yards to go under his prop.
That's fair.
Josh, anything for you?
Do it, Josh.
You want my game bet or what?
No. Like, just looking back at 54, can you say, that went, there was a whole nother quarterback for the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton you can gain from it.
Okay.
It was a weird COVID time, right before that hit. Although you do have the same coaches, same scheme, so you can recreate some of the box score, but not a ton.
Jules, going back to your comment on Patrick Mahomes here, it's hard to not ignore. This is the third game in a row that they've been underdogs, right? Number that we're seeing pushed out there a lot, narrative, 10-1-1, Patrick Mahomes, ATS as a dog. Currently listed as a 2-point underdog now to the San Francisco 49ers here. So does that have you kind of leaning more towards the Chiefs as we're talking game bets?
It does, but not for those reasons. I like Kansas City. I would like Kansas City if they were -1 and I had to play a -120. That would be my bet. I just think, we talk public, where's the money sides. I throw a lot of that out on the Super Bowl. I think it's kind of a different market. I think Kansas City, there's so much to like about Kansas City in this game. I think Kansas City's defense is playing better than the 49ers defense right now. And I think that's a huge problem for the 49ers, how they've looked these last couple of weeks against the Lions and the Packers. Now you got to go up against Mahomes and Kelsey, a good offensive line even without Tooney. I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to find ways to extend plays and make plays in this game against a Niners defense that Jordan Love and Jared Goff just shredded. The defense, I think, is going to cause issues for Purdy passing the ball. Purdy's had issues the last couple of weeks. This is going to be the best defense and best secondary that Purdy has seen. So we've got the quarterback. I think that the running game we've talked about, we think that can have success for Kansas City. I think there's a coaching advantage on the Kansas City side. Like, I'm trying to look for where I like the Niners. I like Christian McCaffrey. I like Debo. They can rip off big plays. They can make an impact in this game. But I'm having trouble finding edges stack up for San Francisco, whereas I think Kansas City has a lot of them.
It's tough because I'm kind of with Julian here. Like,
oh no, that is
better
tough.
Quarterback, better defense, better coach in the Super Bowl. Who do you bet?
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at here. Like, there's just, when you look at the grand scheme of things, like if you look at these rosters side by side, I think the Niners have the better roster, especially offensively, because there's so many ways that the 49ers can go to on any given play. And yet, the Chiefs, with their limited amount of guys who can actually play, it feels like, have been getting it done. Like, I don't think there was a scenario where I thought the Chiefs were going to get here at any point, because I felt like, and I've even said this on the show, that people are just going to blindly take the Chiefs because, oh, it's the Chiefs. Not even looking at their roster and go, well, they only really have Rice and Pacheco and Kelsey at this point, and yet they continue to get it done. But what really was eye-opening for me was seeing the Niners playing from behind against Detroit. Yes, the Niners came back and beat the Detroit Lions. But I attest that more to the Lions just making some bonehead calls to not even be here. Essentially taking 6 points off the board from themselves to not be in this position, and we're not talking about a Chiefs and Lions Super Bowl instead. But Purdy playing from behind is a big red flag for me, and that's what I cannot get over. Even with all those weapons, even with all those guys, just the feeling of duress that he's under and just can't control his feet and throwing across his body. Like, we've seen this in the 2 games that we've seen already from the 49ers. I feel like we're just going to feel like getting that same game script again. But I am worried a little bit, and I'm sure Josh is going to bring this up at some point. Public loves the Chiefs.
Oh.
The public
Teed me up
loves
perfectly,
the
my
Chiefs.
man.
Oh, there you
easily-
go.
the Niners-
Very well
Just
done.
don't top it like Tom
The
Brady.
Niners
try not
easily could have lost both games so far.
100%.
Whereas Kansas City,
Well, Kansas City could have easily lost last week. They didn't score in the second half, and if the Ravens don't sit
but
there and shoot
was there
themselves
ever
in
a
the
point
foot,
in time that
You felt like they were
that
gonna lose?
It was like, oh my God, it is turn, they're going to lose.
Well, the Ravens
No.
just couldn't compose
They
themselves in
dominated
big
the Miami
moments.
game, and then you say, okay, Buffalo
In
makes
0
a kick,
degree
maybe
weather.
Buffalo has a chance. But that would have been Mahomes' 2-minute drill driving for the win, and I would have trusted him. So, like, there's never been a point this entire postseason where I felt like Kansas City's going to lose, whereas the entire postseason, we felt like San Francisco is going to lose until the final second of the game.
I'm getting texts from this guy saying he needs me to help me move him into my
Hey.
house.
Yeah.
Really?
Fortunately, the
I've been
Niners
texting
won.
you. I've been texting you too, but you don't text me back.
Yeah, take a hint. Go ahead.
So
Anyway, Josh.
to Steve's point, I always try to start games with the data. Put my bias to the side. What's the data telling us? The data is telling us, to Steve's point, that the Chiefs are a very trendy dog. They're getting 72% of bets. Public is going Chiefs in this spot. Now, 9 times out of 10, even 99 times out of 100, I would never want to be on the side getting 72%. However, I think this is the one situation where do the numbers accurately reflect the value of Patrick Mahomes to the spread and covering the number? This is the elephant in the room that I think you have to take into account. Now, you also got to ask yourself, why are the 49ers favored? If the Chiefs have the better quarterback, the experience, all these different factors, then why are they a dog? And again, you got to go back to the power ratings. The books trust their numbers. So if the books numbers say, based on both power ratings, let's plug it in the supercomputer, it spits out that this is a 2.5 point game, they're going to post that number. They're going to stay true to their numbers and believe in their numbers. However, elephant in the room is Mahomes. 10-1 ATS as a dog. Playoff dogs this year, 8-4 ATS. Super Bowl dogs, guys. Last 20 years, Super Bowl dogs are 13-7 against the spread, 65%. 3-0 last 3. Kansas City was 1.5 last year. I told myself I took the Eagles like an idiot. I said I'd never bet against Mahomes again. And since I made that declaration, guys, 2-0 against Buffalo, against the Ravens here. Same thing. He comes through. Remember the year before against the Rams? Cincy was plus 4.5. They lose but cover the number. Tampa Bay, the Tom Brady year, plus 3 against Kansas City. They cover the number. Now, if you want to protect yourself and tease up the Chiefs, I think it's a great spot here, going 2-8. If you look at teasing dogs in the Super Bowl, last 20 years, take them up 6 points. They're 17-3 against the spread, 85%. So there was also a tweet that I saw on Twitter. One of the odds makers in Vegas, very respected odds maker, said, hey, Baltimore was the better team, quote unquote, power rating against Kansas City last week. What happened? The Chiefs, end up winning the game here. So I think this, if you're just sticking to the data, there's a lot of reasons to like San Francisco. They opened -2. They got down to 1. It didn't go to a pick 'em. Some people thought it would flip dog to favorite. No, it's gone back up to San Fran. So if you tell me you like San Fran, I'm not going to argue with you. But
I will.
I'm not going to bet against Mahomes, Julian. I'm going to take the points here. Give me Kansas City. Steve, what we're going to do? We're going to put our backpack on. A Camelback, so you get a little bit of water.
Oh, I was going to say, I got a backpack.
We're going to
right
walk
here.
to every book and find a hook on the Chiefs plus 2.5.
What did
And
you
we're gonna
make,
put it
though, of the early move, almost immediately, and then getting back up to where it almost started?
So I think the early move said, hey, a lot of value there to take the points with the Chiefs. It surprised me that it went back up, but Johnny Avello mentioned in the Visa newsletter, he said, don't be surprised if it gets back to 2.5. So again, I think the thing with the Super Bowl is be patient. There's early move, late move
Because that was
happen at low limits.
crushed so fast. Like within a half hour, I feel like we saw that move.
With
when it
good
was
reason.
posted.
Like, what's fresh in your head? The Niners,
Right.
not falling apart, but having another poor game, and the Chiefs somewhat dominating.
Right. You gonna host?
All right, you're the host. So
Yeah,
I was
well,
just
no,
gonna
you guys
say.
were having a great conversation.
What about the total? Any thoughts on the total?
I was going to ask you how many points you expect scored in this one.
Great question, man.
I would
Thanks,
lean
dude.
under.
I've done my research.
I will say though that like I don't think there's ever a scenario where you're going to get the majority of the bets on an under for a Super Bowl ever.
I
Right?
think
Nobody
a lot of
wants
people
to.
too, Steve, will still look back to Super Bowl 54 and say, "Oh, 31-20, okay, over."
I think this is going to be an under though. I really do because one thing I kept talking about earlier in the show is that how much the 49ers have been exploited on the ground. And not necessarily meaning that, the Chiefs are going to turn into a completely run game, but then again, I never expected the Ravens to turn into a complete passing offense last week. But I think that has been such a big weakness for the 49ers that needs to be exploited. So maybe we do get, 20 plus carries from Pacheco in this game. And then what's the best weapon for the 49ers? Well, obviously Christian McCaffrey. So I do think that this is a total that's going to be very close. I think you're going to be sweating the under all throughout this game, but I do think the under is the play in this one, despite everyone being on the over, but everybody wants to see points in the Super Bowl.
Not even just that, but Shanahan has showed early in games he doesn't want to trust Purdy. Then you have to when you have to make these comebacks.
Right.
So San Francisco is going to try and run too.
He's just going to unleash Christian McCaffrey, dude, who, by the way, did you see he and his girlfriend are not dropping the $2.5 million for his suite for their families?
Wow, that's great.
That's rude.
I definitely
Anywho.
need to know that.
All right, 4 top 10 matchups this weekend around college basketball, including Duke UNC.
Slate of the season.
First top 10 game between the rivals since 2019. Best college basketball slate so far this year. Let's break it down. Best bets. This weekend feels a hell of a lot like March in men's college hoops. 4 matchups between top 10 teams, including a certain rivalry game on Tobacco Road. So today's showdown between the Tar Heels and Blue Devils, 49th time the programs have played each other while being ranked in the top 10, both of them. How remarkable is that figure? In the history of men's college basketball, no other series has more than 14 top 10 matchups. What is that sound? It is.
Hopefully it's only in our ears. It sounds awful.
Absolutely. So let's continue on here with this game. And which side you are leaning towards with Duke UNC.
Oh, okay, it stopped. I was going to say this needs to come out. The question was Duke UNC.
Yeah,
Jules?
We're starting with that.
Man.
Is that not the headliner tonight?
Hopefully nobody heard that at home. All right, Duke UNC. I like the Tar Heels at home. I will lay the points. I don't believe in Duke much this season, and the splits are kind of going the other way, Josh, right? And this number has come down. I disagree with the move. Duke's 4-2 on the road, so sure they can win some road games, but they also have a couple home losses. Point being, this team can slip up at any time. They're kind of less predictable than any Duke team that we've seen in past years. So I think that this is a safe spot to assume that Duke is going to struggle and play kind of poorly, especially with UNC 9-0 at home. They're coming off a midweek loss to Georgia Tech, clearly a look-ahead spot, setting up a bounce-back spot at home for a game as big as it gets. Prior to that loss to Georgia Tech, UNC was on a 10-0 straight-up, 9-1 against the spread run. I think we see that form of the Tar Heels show up at home in a huge Saturday night game.
These games never fail to disappoint here, Josh, in this rivalry.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this one. Can't wait to sweat it. I would, to Julian's point, the fact that UNC is coming off that straight-up loss on the road to Georgia Tech, I don't like betting against them. This, feels like a spot where they're mad, they're upset, they're annoyed, they're embarrassed. They're going to really come back today and play well. But I got to go to the betting market here, and I'm going to take the points here with Duke +4. Number one, the line has moved toward Duke. Some books were, I saw 5.5, a 5, 4.5, we're down to 4. And what's most striking to me is when you look at the bet splits, everybody's betting UNC. UNC is getting 83% of bets across the market. So if UNC is getting the lion's share, massive amount, in a very heavily bet game, just from a contrarian standpoint, to bet against the public would be to take Duke here. But also, if everyone's betting UNC, why is this line falling toward Duke? Tells me there was smart money who grabbed the points here with the Dukies. Now, aside from being a super contrarian play, only 17% bets, you have the conference dog angle, the rivalry angle, but in particular, Duke would match a system that won yesterday with Butler in terms of a dog who can score. If you're in a spread sport and you're on a dog, you're not as concerned winning the game. You're just all you care about is covering the number. So when a team like whether it's college hoops, college football, NFL, college, either sport, football, basketball, if you can put up points, you can cover a number. Even like the Detroit Lions against the 49ers, not the best defense, but they could score and backdoor cover. My whole point being, Butler was a team that's averaged 80 points a game. They went outright. I'm not saying that Duke's going to win this game outright, but I'll take the 4, see if they can lose by 3 or less. They average 81 points a game. They're actually higher ranked offensive efficiency than UNC, 9th versus 19th. Better effective field goal percentage, better three-point percentage, and the Dukies are 4-2 on the road. So if you give me the most heavily bet game, or one of the most heavily bet games of the day, 83% are on UNC, give me the Dukies +4 all day.
What about number 4 Houston, number 8 Kansas? We can go back to what we were warming up to when we were working up a sweat at the top of the show, Josh. You made it very clear. Rolling into Lawrence and leaving with a win is one of the toughest tasks in college basketball.
And hopefully you listened, because where's the line right now, Emerson?
Where is it, big man?
We're down to basically a pick'em.
Oh,
so
no!
if you listen to that warm-up, you got a +1.5. We're down to a pick'em or a 1-point spread. You're
People are watching the show, clearly.
So that's sweat steam right there. Definitely, Emerson, I would say. But reasons to like Kansas in this spot. Number one is the line move. We're down to a pick'em, or even just now at this point, Houston -1. Why is that important? Because Houston opened -2.5. So this line is falling even further. Overnight, morning, we're getting late into the morning. It's still continuing to go toward Kansas here. We mentioned the bet splits earlier. Basically, it's a 50-50 ticket count, but 80% of the money is going Kansas. You match the conference dog angle. You have a bunch of offensive advantages. And really in the spot at home, Allen Fieldhouse is going to be going nuts here. And you can really bank on this, or not bank on it, but hopefully in this spot can get his team motivated, play that underdog role, where again, the Chiefs can play that underdog role, chip on their shoulder again in the Super Bowl. But I love the fact that this line is moving in further in favor of Kansas. I'm loving the fact that I got a 1.5 earlier.
Jules, people have the chance here to take one of the best, if not the best coaches and programs at home as an underdog, and it sounds like they're doing it right now.
Yeah, I got plus 2.5. I'm good with the Jayhawks all the way to a pick, essentially. Houston's 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 road games. They're 3-2 straight up on the road this season, but this is as tough a test as it gets. Kansas is 11-0 at home. This is arguably the hardest arena to play in college basketball. Huge ask for Houston. So we talked about it 3 years ago was the last time Kansas was a home dog. They beat an undefeated Baylor team by double digits. It's just hard to imagine Kansas as a home dog. And, you don't want to get too wrapped up in that, but you have to identify how difficult of a game this is going to be for Houston. What is this? Houston's most difficult road game since like the 80s when they had Akeem Olajuwon. This is going to be as tough as it gets. I will take the Jayhawks here. They win at home. It's what they do.
And you got Kentucky and Tennessee on your betting card as well. Did both these teams lose earlier this week? I know Kentucky did to Florida.
Both looking ahead, really. And Tennessee's loss was probably worse. At home to South Carolina, laying double digits. Kentucky lost at home in overtime to a good Florida team. It was a revenge spot for Florida. Kentucky went down to Florida earlier in the season and beat them. So both teams kind of bouncing back here, yes. John Calipari has only lost back-to-back home games once since he became the Kentucky head coach in 2010. That doesn't matter. It just shows you, kind of like Kansas, the consistency of that program. I like taking the 1.5 with the Wildcats at home. Sharp on the bet splits thus far. We haven't seen much movement, but the bigger bets are coming in on the Wildcats. Tennessee's a really good team, but I just think this matches up well for John Calipari and the Wildcats here. I think they are the overall more talented team when they're at their best.
Yeah, I know Purdue and Wisconsin is another one of those one of the 4 top 10 matchups that we're going to see this weekend. That's going to be on Sunday. That's going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Wisconsin was just upset by Nebraska. But other games that you guys have on your betting card, looks like you both are feeling that Iowa State-Baylor contest, Josh.
Yeah, I really like this spot toward Baylor, Emerson. It's a primetime game tonight, 8 o'clock, and a lot of movement here toward Baylor. I mean, Baylor opened as low as -2.5. When I left the house this morning, they were like 3.5. Now they're popping to -4, so this line continues to move toward Baylor. And it's kind of fishy because Iowa State is 16-4, ranked 12th. Baylor's 15-5, ranked 18th. Iowa State's coming off a big win over Kansas. Iowa State has won 3 straight. Meanwhile, Baylor, they just beat, unfortunately, your UCF.
Yeah, you didn't have to mention that.
Yeah,
but I guess
sorry
you kind
about
of
that.
did at the same
the alma
time.
mater there. But they had a 3-game losing streak prior to that. So just think of it this way. Iowa State is ranked higher. They've been playing better as of late. Baylor's struggling a bit here. They're ranked worse and have a worse record. Yet Baylor opens -2.5, and they've been bet up to 3.5 or 4. I love this bet split. They're getting less than half the tickets, but 70% of the money. Better effective field goal percentage, 3-point shooting, free throw shooting as well. Now, I think you're going to get into a situation of, do I lay the points and save the juice, or do I go money line? I got this on the money line, -165 a little bit earlier. It's now a little higher, like -170. I don't like to go typically higher than that, but I'll protect myself and go money line. Ken Pom only has them winning by 3. So again, if this is going to be a tight game, you'd hate, to lay at this point a 4 and have Baylor win by 1, 2, or 3, and you lose your bet. And system match here, guys, with all these ranked matchups today, when 2 ranked teams face off and play each other, the home favorite is 19-4 straight up, 83% this year. They're 114-28 straight up, 80% since 2021. Baylor is 10-1 at home. I think Baylor gets it done. I got a money line play on Baylor, -165.
Jules, and I want to go to UConn and St. John's here because you are being attacked on social media right now, and it turns out you are correct. The reason people are attacking you,
a lot, man.
You really are, dude. You've really been on lately. So why are people giving you crap here for this game?
All right. Well, first of all, apparently
You need
there's some
backup.
confusion.
There's full
I'm good. The games
No,
at
you're not.
MSG.
You're
I
sad.
can stand up for myself.
No, you
games
can't.
at MSG. I think there's the perception that, hey, UConn just barely got them by 4 at home in Connecticut earlier in the season. Johnny's covered +11. I was on St. John's in that building. St. John's has in that game. St. John's has the ability to play UConn tough, but this is not some home revenge spot for St. John's on campus or whatever. This is at Madison Square Garden, which is a home court from time to time for St. John's. Like that Marquette game, tough beat for me and Josh. What was that, last weekend? MSG's as home floor as it gets for UConn. There could easily be more than 50% UConn fans at this game. They're very comfortable playing in this spot. UConn didn't play that well against Providence, laying 13. They didn't cover. They won by 9. Maybe looking ahead to this game a little bit. UConn's going to be jacked to this game. We only have to lay 3 now. 3.5. It went back up. 3.5 is totally fine. St. John's has lost 4 of its last 5 games. They're 2-3 against the spread over that period of time. It's just... Sure, St. John's can be sharp in this game, and they can be a team that plays UConn tough. This number is way too short for the type of talent UConn rolls out. And I know Karaban rolled his ankle last game. Maybe he doesn't go in this one. Way too many waves of talent for UConn. St. John's is getting the sharp money in this game. I totally disagree. I love UConn in this game.
Josh, was there anything you wanted to add very quickly about Florida and Texas A&M? Florida coming off that big upset win.
Yeah, just really like Texas A&M in this spot,
Okay.
Emerson. Texas A&M open as low as -1.5. They're up to -2.5. It's a buy low spot. It's a fade of Florida for me. So give me A&M bubble spot. They got to win this game to help their resume.
Wisconsin beats Purdue tomorrow.
All right, we got to take a 240-second break. When we return, let's go live to the side of Super Bowl 58. Yeah, Las Vegas. Vicente Femi Abebefe joining us from Circa, setting the tone and the scene for us. All right, folks, it's time to wet the Las Vegas palate just a little bit. We're gonna be live out there. This show, The Sweat, with Josh and Steve next weekend. But right now, let's get to our good friend, Femi Abebefe of VSiN. Top of the morning, big man. How's it going?
Morning, fellas. It's going good here. The sun has not come up yet, so it's a little bit dark earlier today, but it's a little chilly out there. So for everybody coming out here for the Super Bowl this upcoming week, make sure you bring your rain jacket and a nice coat, because the weather isn't the typical desert weather, but hey, we're doing good nonetheless, though.
Yeah, we haven't seen the sun in 2 weeks. I mean, it's out right now outside of this studio. I've been absolutely miserable, and my seasonal depression is at an all-time high. But are you taking this advice right now? You're going to need to bundle up out there, you and poor Steven.
So this is actually great news for me, Femi, because I'm the type of guy who sweats all the time, is disgusting.
Yeah,
is
you
always
are
hot.
nasty.
So I'm fine with the fact that it's going to be colder, rainy. I'll be at the book anyway, sweating games, so I'm totally fine with the bad weather.
Yeah, dude. Well, there's there's a reason you're on this show called The Sweat, is because you're such a moist human being.
Yeah.
Femi, set the stage for us a little bit out there. Like, what can people really expect? Is the vibe already starting to pick up there with the Super Bowl coming to town?
100%. You can already feel like this is sort of the calm before the storm, is what we've been saying all throughout this week. I was driving by the Strip a couple days ago during one of my off days, and they've already started to do all the decorations. The Lombardi Trophy was outside of one of the casinos out here, and there was all the Niners and Chiefs apparel everywhere. So everyone's in the Super Bowl vibe, even going off the Strip to just like your regular department stores are selling a bunch of Niners and Chiefs gear. So everyone's buzzing about this game. It's the first time it's going to be here in Las Vegas, which if you said that 10 years ago, everyone would have laughed you out of the room, but here we are in 2024 with the Super Bowl being here in Vegas. So we got a good matchup. Obviously, the high-powered players with the Mahomes of the world, the McCaffreys, the Purdys. So it should be a pretty fun matchup, and people are excited for it. And I'm excited to have you guys out here. You know, it's going to be a whole lot of fun actually being able to connect with our DK Network friends, because we talk over virtual and all this stuff, but we'll actually be able to see each other in 3D.
So who are you going to give the top bunk to? Is it going to be Steve or Josh?
We're going to fight for it, I
don't know about the accommodations or setup. Hopefully DraftKings is taking care of you guys with the hotel setup. So nobody can come stay at my house, but if you guys want to come and have me down there for a couple of soda pops, I'm more than happy to.
Oh,
good.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, you could just go all night long, then wander into the Circus studio and help host the show from there.
Just adrenaline, Emerson. That's what we're going to run on.
Femi, we've been talking about this Super Bowl Swifty 8 here all morning long on The Sweat.
Swifty 8.
Yeah, Swifty 8. Yeah, get ready for that one, big dude. What is your approach to this game, especially betting it on the DK Sportsbook here?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit of the Swifty 8 here, because I call this the sleep at night special. I like the Chiefs to win the game. So Chiefs money line is a solid look here for me, just because I don't think that I can sleep at night knowing that I bet against Patrick Mahomes in the biggest game of the season. I bet against him in the AFC title game with the Ravens. I bet against him in the AFC divisional with Buffalo. I know I actually bet on Kansas City against Miami, so he hasn't stolen all of my money, but the last couple of weeks it hasn't been good. But I think that this is coming up for Kansas City. You have the better quarterback, you have the more experienced and better head coach in Andy Reid, and you have the better defense on Kansas City's side. Now, this is not to disrespect the Niners, because I agree with the market sitting at 2 over at DraftKings, because the Niners were a juggernaut for much of this season here. But in the biggest of spots, we know that these things kind of come down to execution and big name players making those plays. And who better to bet on than the best player in the sport, in Patrick Mahomes? So in a coin flip game, give me Mahomes if I'm going to go ahead and get plus money with it.
Femi, I'm right there with you. I'll take the points with Mahomes as well. I want to get your take on the total, because I think obviously all the talk here is with the spread and the side. And, do you take Mahomes? Do you follow the 10-1 in ATS as a dog? Do you go money line? Do you go spread? I don't really hear a lot of people talking about the total. So, Femi, obviously when you get to these big games, the public's going to want to hammer these overs. 70% of bets are taking the over. It's 47.5. Does it get down to 47 before we get to kickoff? That's something I'm monitoring. But the Chiefs are 14-6 to the under. And again, in the high total playoff games, 47 or more, the under 62% since 2018. So Femi, what do you think? Do you expect points in this one, or do you think maybe lean under and grab the 47.5 now because it may fall?
If you were to bet it now, I would bet the under, just because I do think that you might see this close 47, just because I have so much respect for this Kansas City Chiefs defense, and that's sort of been the tenor of this team. It hasn't been the high-flying, like Mahomes, Kelsey, passing yards like we saw last year when they played the Eagles. This has been more of a defensive team, and I mean, the second half under has sort of been the story of the Kansas City Chiefs from a betting perspective all season long. I think they're like 18-1 so far this year. Second half unders, like they just go ahead and grind these games down to a halt. So I'm going to go ahead and take the strategy of waiting to bet this in-game for the under, just because I think both offenses with the 2 weeks to prepare will have some good game scripts to where maybe you get a couple of touchdowns in the first 20 minutes of game time, to where maybe you get a 50-something in there, and then you can go ahead and play that under, just knowing that the second half under angle has hit so many times for Kansas City. So if you wanted to play this pre-flop, I would go under 47.5, but me personally, I'm going to go ahead and wait to go ahead and maybe get a little cute, play an in-game under after a couple of scores to start the game.
Hey, Femi, it's also like another shot at an elusive Super Bowl title here for Kyle Shanahan, but history is really against him here. So throughout Super Bowl history, Femi, there have been only 3 rematches between head coaches, this year being the 4th, and in the previous 3 instances, the coach who won the first Super Bowl also secured victory in the second. What would, yeah, isn't that a fantastic
Good
stat?
for KC.
I've done like 5 minutes of research here. So, Femi, like,
He's reading the game book.
yeah, for real, dude. I know the script. I mean, what would another loss to Andy Reid in the Super Bowl do to, you think, Kyle Shanahan's, early legacy here?
I mean, there's going to be people who say that Shanahan can't win the big one. And unfortunately, in sports, that's sort of everybody's MO until they ultimately do it. Like, everyone's a choker until they win. And Kyle Shanahan, who I have tremendous respect for, what he's able to do for that 49ers team, when he took over, they were in the dumps in 2017. And now they've gone to a second Super Bowl. They've gone to a number of NFC title games. And this, I think, this year has kind of been his masterpiece. This is what he's always wanted the team to look like. Because if you kind of take it full circle and go back to Super Bowl 54 in Miami when he took on the Kansas City Chiefs, like, the end of that game in that fourth quarter is why Brock Purdy is the quarterback today. He knew that, okay, if I go up against Mahomes in the Super Bowl, if I go up against Andy Reid, I need a better quarterback than what I have in Jimmy Garoppolo. And then that's when they went ahead and tried to make the trade for Trey Lance. That didn't work out, but luckily they used the last pick in the draft and got Brock Purdy, and that clearly has worked out mightily to their success here. So this is kind of the full circle moment here for Kyle Shanahan and this 49ers organization. And if they lose the game, you'll get the detractors saying all the stuff that they say, and I get they'll be right, because I guess he hasn't won. But for me, at least, I don't know how you can have tremendous respect for Kyle Shanahan and what he's been able to do. That offense was the best offense in football by wide margin here. So if they don't win it, I mean, hey, you lose to the best quarterback in the league and maybe one of the greatest of all time when it's all said and done. I don't really think there's too much shame in that, because if you're losing to Mahomes, I mean, you just got to put your hands up and shrug.
Femi, got to ask you about prop bets here. I mean, we've seen prop bets absolutely explode over last few years, especially with legalization. You talk to bookmakers now, and they'll tell you sometimes they get more money on props than the actual conventional game betting. So I want to ask you, any guys you're targeting, your overall approach. Do you have any kind of ways to attack the prop market? I know a lot of bettors either like to bet it early or wait, see it really move a ton, and then go back and go the other way. Any recommendations you would have for people listening? How to bet props, and are you holding any prop tickets, or are you waiting on any that you're going to target?
Yeah, I would say, like, the recommendation is, as it typically is with any sort of prop betting, if you want to bet the over, you better bet that early. And if you're looking to bet the under, you should probably wait a little bit once some of that recreational money gets into the market starting this week. Because, I mean, we have so much time in the lead up with the Super Bowl after the conference title games. There's 2 weeks. Recreational money doesn't really start showing up until probably, the Thursday before the Super Bowl. So we're still a few days away from some of those bettors getting into the market. And like you said, Josh, betting overs, because everybody wants to root for something. It's the Super Bowl. Nobody wants to go to the Super Bowl party and be clapping and cheering for incomplete passes and no gains on runs. So I think if you like those unders, you can sort of kind of wait a little bit on the prop standpoint here. Now, for me personally, I haven't bet this yet, but it's something that I'm going to do very soon. I've been kind of waiting for all of the props to sort of populate out here in Nevada, but I like the Isaiah Pacheco over rushing yards. I don't know how you can watch the 49ers run defense during this playoffs and not like it. We saw Aaron Jones and that Packers rushing attack have a lot of success. Last week, I mean, they couldn't stop Jimmy Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery for the Lions, those guys were running all up and down the 49ers defense. And that defense is so predicated on rushing the passer and getting upfield to where they kind of let defending the run kind of go to the wayside. And Pacheco, he's sort of been the Chiefs' identity offensively. Like I mentioned, it hasn't been the high-flying passing attack of the pass for the Kansas City Chiefs. They've sort of been more of a balanced approach, and Andy Reid has been more willing to run the football, which has been the knock on him in the past. So I think Pacheco has a big game in this game next week here to over 67.5. That, to me, is a solid look there with Isaiah Pacheco.
All right, I'll give you 30 seconds here, Femi. What can you tease coming up on the Lombardi line, my friend?
Oh, we're going to be breaking down all of the props. We got a little bit of bettor's choice. Mahomes versus Purdy passing yards. We'll do that. Super Bowl MVP. I liked it going with the Swifty 8 theme here.
Yeah.
I like Travis Kelce, Super Bowl MVP. I'm going with that. We're riding the narrative. The most culturally relevant athlete in America is going to win Super Bowl MVP. So that's just a little bit of a tease on what you can expect with Michael Lombardi at the top of the hour. So make sure you guys stick around for that.
All right, we will. And as I tell Michael Lombardi all the time, and you guys are welcome for the massive lead-in audience that you guys get. We're happy to help. Thanks, dude. I'm glad Femi,
We appreciate it, boys.
I'm glad Femi brought up Kelce too, because we're going to go cover to cover here to wrap up the show. Some Swifty specials. I don't know. My warm-up bet going to be maybe a cool-off bet. By wrapping up the show here, folks, thank you so much if you stuck with us throughout this entire thing, or if you turned us on for 5 minutes and turned us off, we still appreciate you, and I totally understand and I totally get it. So we're going to go cover to cover, just from the front cover of the DraftKings Sportsbook to the back cover, everything that there is to offer right now. Just any other Super Bowl bets that are kind of cooking in those big beefy brains of yours that maybe we haven't touched on yet, that you think people should get after right now, Jules?
I'll mention, we still have a lot of time. I'm not all the way dug in, but one that stuck out to me, and you can find it in that VSiN guide, the shortest touchdown in the game. I believe the over-under is set at 3.5. The under on 3.5 is on a 21-1 run. So that is encapsulating the last 22 Super Bowls. 21-1 run to the under using the number 3.5 on shortest touchdown. I thought that was an interesting trend if we're doing some digging here off of some of these wild props that we can go with.
Wait, you're getting weird. You're going over to DST. You're getting over to the defense special teams.
What are we doing, Josh?
I'm going
What
super
are we doing,
weird.
Josh?
Well, you said cover to cover. That means you got to look for every little
absolutely.
nugget.
And that's what we want. We want maybe some of these hidden jewels.
So a couple of these jump out to me.
That's my segment. Nobody here can give hidden jewels.
All right, hey,
besides me.
we're apple picking.
Yeah, I like that. You just came up with that right now.
Dude.
My ancestors came from Eastern Europe. Applebaum.
So what's this DST bet you got going?
Brings a legacy to me, Emerson. But anyway, these special teams, I just think this is kind of a market here that really is underserved. Everyone's going to want to bet the offensive players to go over. No one's talking about the defense. Let's give the defense some love. I'm looking toward Fred Warner over 2.5 tackles plus assists. It's minus 166 to the over. It's a little bit expensive, but I think it's expensive for a reason. He had 13 tackles and assists against Detroit. He had 7 against Green Bay. Chiefs are going to run the ball a lot. Gives him an opportunity as a inside linebacker here to make some plays and get some tackles. He had 7 against Kansas City in the 2020 Super Bowl. So I'm going to go Warner over 2.5 tackles and assists. And then also Emerson, longest kickoff return.
Oh.
I'm going to go under 27.5 yards. It's minus 145 to the under. Anytime you get an under that's juiced up, that really screams to me because, again, public wants to bet overs, but we're going to have a lot. We're in a dome. You're going to be able to boot these things into the end zone. I don't think there's going to be many kickoff returns. Probably just take it out at the 25. I'll go under 27.5.
And that is apple picking in
Like
the
that?
Garden of
My
Eden.
ancestors were born in a
and I gave you
sports
some
book.
family tree insights there, too. So.
The Garden of Eden.
Damn.
Yep. Glad to know that Josh has done his ancestry DNA test, and now he
Yeah,
knows who
that's
they
great.
all are.
And you shared your social security number with everybody earlier on this
We're
show.
just open
right.
to sharing today.
Yep.
What else you got?
So you can do a head-to-head play on receiving yards against 2 different players. So you can do Brandon Ayuk versus Rashee Rice. I like taking Rashee Rice at minus 125. Like Ayuk is definitely the wide receiver one in this offense here, but are you looking? Want to see it?
He's been looking
I don't
at
mind
everyone's
that.
computers
You guys
this
are cheating on
entire
each other's
show.
homework.
Do
Well,
your
I just
work.
saw one jump out. I don't mind Kelsey minus 140 over Ayuk.
All right, well, you can talk about that after. Let me talk.
Sure.
But we have
I didn't
Ayuk
even
here.
say anything. I just looked, and you decided to yell at me.
Yeah, stop.
His little beady eyes in the corner of his eye, I see him like staring
You're
at my
the kid
screen.
who copies like everyone's homework. You're the reason
Without
we
it.
had to put up like
remember
little
those big
blockers and
cardboard walls?
binders.
Yeah.
You're the reason. Kids like you.
But yeah, so Rice
ahead.
over Ayuk. Like I mentioned, obviously Ayuk is the wide receiver one in this Niners offense here, but Rice has been getting those consistent targets really since week 11 here, seeing an average of almost 7 targets per game, including the playoffs here. So I like Rice to have the more receiving yards over Ayuk, minus 125. Now give the head-to-head that you like now.
I haven't done my research on it.
Okay,
Saw the number and
I've done a little bit of research.
Popped up.
I've done a little bit of research. For the Swifties.
boy.
All right.
On the Swifties side. Listen, I'm not even a huge Swiftie, but I think some of these stand out to me.
This is so
That
stupid.
you belong with Rashee. So Kelsey
hate
or
this
Rice
so
to score a
much.
touchdown in the first half plus 120 odds.
Oh, it's so stupid.
Okay? Friendship bracelets is another one. Either Kelsey or Juszczyk to score the first touchdown at plus 600.
There we go.
Here's what I like, though. I like Travis Kelsey. You could go with that, or if it's Kelsey you think will score first, you could also get him plus 700 right now. Score the first touchdown. Scored the first touchdown against the Ravens. Right? We've seen him with 3 touchdowns this postseason.
Yep.
Scored the first.
You're really just betting Kelsey.
Yeah,
You think
yeah,
Kyle
exactly. But
Juszczyk
I'm
is
just
gonna-
saying these are some options here. Give me a second. I'm almost done. Scored the first touchdown against the Eagles last Super Bowl.
Yep.
Did have a touchdown against the 49ers in Super Bowl 54, albeit not the first one.
What are we
Okay?
shooting?
He is going to come out. He is well rested. He is going to come out. He is going to be involved early and often on that Chiefs opening drive. You know who shows up on the biggest stage in football? Guys who are trying to impress their billionaire, superstar, global icon, girlfriend up top, red lipstick on, and watching. I also...
So he's going to do this because he wants to impress Taylor Swift, not
Absolutely.
because he wants to win the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's already won the Super Bowl.
yes.
Who cares?
So now's
Right.
an opportunity to win the Super Bowl
Taylor's
and
more
impress your
important.
girlfriend. And in the Rice thing, hey, listen, I put it in the VSiN guide that all our picks that we've been asked to put in. I want you to know this. It's a long shot. It's a dark horse. They're going to hate me for this.
We already
Rasheed
do.
Rice, Super Bowl MVP.
You
that's a
belong
bad
to
bet.
5,000.
Rasheed.
And this is only if you think that this 49ers defense will come out and maybe focus on Travis Kelce, who we mentioned earlier, Jules, top 2 targets for Patrick Mahomes, especially in the red zone, who Rice has more red zone looks than Kelce does. They have the same amount of touchdowns this season. Rice has the ability. We've seen him since week 12. This is one of the security blankets for Patrick Mahomes. He comes out and mashes. Went for 130 yards, whatever it was, against the Dolphins. He has the ability here. He has the ability to blow this game up with his speed, his quickness.
That was-
That was actually
the cap of the century. I love that. Well done.
That was some decent analysis
That was
on my
great
part.
analysis.
All right?
That was the worst 2 minutes in the show's history.
I'm feeling good about it, people. I'm feeling good about it. May use
All
my
right,
92-cent bonus bet on
Yeah,
that.
we still got more show to do.
What else do we got on the book? Anything else from college basketball too that we didn't hit on earlier? Because you're praising today's slate.
Just
Best
please,
slate.
please talk.
Yeah, I'll give out
back.
a money line parlay actually because two teams I was really interested are Indiana at home against Penn State and San Diego State at home against Colorado State. The 5.5s were a little bit too rich for me, so I put the two together on a money line parlay at plus money. Let me see, which game haven't I broken down here? Penn State is 1-8 in games away from home this season. That's road games and neutral combined. And then you have Indiana, who is 10-2 at home. Penn State is also off a big win over Rutgers as 7-point dogs, so a little bit of a letdown spot. Really tough place to play at Indiana, so I like them to win that game. Utah State's 5-2 on the road, but just 2-4-1 ATS, so they haven't been performing to expectations. San Diego State is off 2 tough road losses, and they're 10-0 at home. So I really like putting those two teams together to create a plus money line parlay. And then tomorrow, Wisconsin, we don't have a number yet. Ken Palm's got it. Wisconsin is a 2-point home underdog to Purdue. Purdue can struggle on the road. This is a huge game for Wisconsin. Wisconsin lost an overtime game during the week at Nebraska, potentially looking ahead to this one. Purdue also went to overtime, struggling at home to beat Northwestern. I really like how this spot sets up for Wisconsin in a huge game on Sunday afternoon.
Back at the start of the show, we were working up a sweat. Steve, you hit on the Red Sox, how pathetic their offseason is, how they are so non-committed to winning, it appears. You went under on that win total. Josh, you're going to baseball right now, and a team who's been pretty damn good lately. Team who was in the World Series.
I believe so. If the research proves correct. And Steve, I'll get your quick knee-jerk reaction to this too. But Arizona Diamondbacks over 83.5 wins. And they win you 84 games. I think they definitely can. The 83.5 is juiced up over minus 120. Steve mentioned earlier, but our attention is on football and college basketball. By the way, you look in the babackground, you know, not in the spotlight, but these numbers are moving in terms of baseball win totals. And the juice move can tell you where it might go next. So if it 83.5 over minus 120, could hit 84 before you know it. I think you grab that 83.5 over with Arizona right now. They won 84 games last year. And are they a better team than they were last year? I think so. They add Eugenio Suarez there to play third base. They just signed Jock Peterson for some mashing in the middle of their lineup. They re-signed Gurriel. They bring in Erod. They still have Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. They have a really good bullpen here. And again, losing in the World Series, motivation coming back the next year. I think you hit D-backs over 83.5 right now.
Diamondbacks are plus money, by the way, to make the postseason.
Yeah, that's
plus 110, yes, minus 130, no.
Well, I mean, but the reason is too is because they're giving them no shot to win the division because of the Dodgers.
You gotta
so there's
get in
only
as a wild
one.
card,
Yeah,
yep.
so there's only one path for them to get
makes
into
sense.
the wild card because I believe the Dodgers are minus 400 to win the division. I think it is right now, which is just absurd. But I like that play from Josh too. Especially too when you talk about that rotation, Brandon Pfaadt, who was really good in the postseason. He's someone I'm very high on coming into the season. He's their number 4 coming into this year. I like this one a lot, and I love the moves for Peterson in the heart of the lineup. Bringing Eugenio Suarez too for some defense and some pop as well. That's going to be a team that's going to continue to be a force.
Well, gentlemen, with Steve and Josh heading to Vegas tomorrow, we're going to take the day off, but we've got tons of content here on DK Network and VSiN. They've got you covered with Super Bowl coverage at this time tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. VSiN's prop bet special going to be right here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. So you're going to have betting experts galore, 2 hours of nonstop breakdowns to get you ready for the big game, all the advice and picks that you are craving. We'll be back next Saturday, live from Vegas. You too, get you set for Chiefs and the Niners, and I'm being told we have viewers making friendship bracelets for you right now.
Keep them.